Today, we are learning all about adjectives, of course, in Spanish, because I want you to be able to put an entire sentence together by the end of this lesson. Welcome to Teacher Catalina, my channel, where you learn Spanish from a native speaker, a certified Spanish teacher with more than 16 years of teaching experience. So what are adjectives? You already know that in English, but basically, just like a little refresher, adjectives are words that describe nouns. Basically, things such as colors or any other descriptive word. In Spanish, though, we have to be a little careful about adjectives because we have to worry about gender and also number. Don't worry, I'm going to break it down for you. For this lesson, we are going to learn how to describe people or maybe yourself. So we're going to go ahead and focus on those specific adjectives, things that describe somebody. So, what I want you to think is that if we describe a boy versus when we describe a girl, those adjectives are going to be a little bit different because remember, and this is the one thing that I need to make sure you remember, adjectives must match in gender and number to the nouns that they describe. So let's start really basic and then we can get into the more complex stuff. So, the masculine form of most adjectives is going to end in O. Is that always the case? No, that's what I said most of the time. Now, the feminine form of most adjectives is going to end in A. Again, this is not always the case, but it's what we're going to go with for now. Masculine adjectives, most of the time end in O, and feminine adjectives, most of the time will end in A. So now let's pop in our chart here because our job today is to learn how to categorize adjectives. So our chart is divided in four. We have O for the masculine singular, A for the feminine singular, Os for the masculine plural, and As, A-S, for the feminine plural. So let's see how this works. Let's start with the adjective alto, alto, which means tall. If we're talking about one male, we will say alto, alto. If we're talking about one female, we would say alta, alta. Did you see how we changed from alto to alta? That's again that gender change there that we have to deal with. Now, let's look at the plural forms. If we're talking about a group of guys and we want to say they are tall, we would say altos, altos. And if it's a group of girls, we would say altas, altas. So now you're probably wondering, so what if we have a mixed group of guys and girls? Well, hopefully you remember from our previous lesson when we learned subject pronouns that the moment that we have a male in the group, making it a mixed group, we are always going to go with the masculine form. So in that case, we would say altos, altos. Let's look at another example. Let's have the opposite of alto, which would be bajo, bajo, kind of like me. So if we're talking about one male, we would say bajo, bajo. If we're talking about one female, we would say baja, baja. A group of guys or a mixed group, we would say bajos. And a group of girls would be bajas, bajas. Just in case you didn't catch it, that J sounds like an H in English. And I'm putting a video over here so that you can review that. Let's continue filling out our chart, now with a different adjective. We have the adjective rubio, rubio. That's somebody who's blonde. That's not me, but we're gonna go with the word rubio, blonde. If it's a male, one male, rubio. If it's a woman, a female, we would say rubia. Now, if it's a group of guys, or again, a mixed group, it would be rubios. And if it's a group of girls, would be rubias, rubias. I think you're kind of catching on. Take a look at our chart so that you can see that pattern going on. Okay, Teacher Catalina, that sounds good. I can handle that. But are there any exceptions? Are there any adjectives that do not end in an O? Well, the answer is yes, absolutely. There are some adjectives that don't end in an O. For example, let's look at the adjective inteligente. Inteligente, which by the way is a cognate, which means that you should be able to tell what it means. Intelligent, inteligente. How do we sort of place it in this situation where we're still worrying about gender and number? Well, let's look at it. So, the masculine and feminine form is going to be inteligente. It doesn't change. Basically, inteligente does not have a gender. It's going to be inteligente for a guy, inteligente for a girl. Now, since there's no gender, there won't be gender in the plural forms either, but we do have to make it plural. So how do we make inteligente plural? We're just going to add an S. So we're going to say inteligentes, inteligentes. So if it's a male, inteligente. If it's a female, inteligente. If it's a group of guys or a mixed group, inteligentes. And if it's a group of girls, inteligentes. That one was easy. We only changed from singular to plural. So you probably noticed that if it ends in a vowel, we're basically going to add an S to make it plural. That's why we went from inteligente to inteligentes. But what if we have an adjective like joven, which means young? What do you do? That does not end in a vowel. Well, the first thing you need to know about joven is that it is, again, one of those adjectives that we don't have to worry about gender. If we want to say a young male, we're going to say joven. And if it's a young female, we're going to say joven. But how do we make it plural? We cannot just simply add an S. If the adjective ends in a consonant, we have to add ES. So now the plural form of joven would be jóvenes. Jóvenes. Jóvenes for a group of guys or a mixed group, and jóvenes for a group of girls. So now that you know basically kind of how like the adjectives work and we have to make sure that they match in gender and number, let's look at a few more adjectives that I think you may find useful. We have the adjective moreno, moreno, which is generally used for somebody that's brunette or somebody that has a little bit more of a dark skin tone. So we would say moreno, morena, morenos, morenas. Since we're talking about hair, let's talk about somebody who has red hair. Pelirrojo, 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 pelirroja, pelirrojos, and pelirrojas. Maybe you want to say somebody's funny, like comic funny. You would say cómico, cómico. So we have cómico, cómica, cómicos, and cómicas. Let's go with an opposite one, somebody who's serious. You would say serio, serio. So we have serio, seria, serios, and serias. What about somebody who is romantic? We would say romántico, romántica, románticos, and románticas. So now you have a bunch of adjectives that you just learned. And if you joined me for my previous lessons, you already know about subject pronouns and also how to conjugate the verb ser, which means to be. So now that we know those three things, we should be able to put a sentence together and we should be able to describe ourselves or describe others. So how about we put one sentence together first when we're talking about ourselves? So I'll give you a sentence about me. Again, I'm going to start with my subject pronoun, then the conjugation of the verb ser, and then an adjective. The adjective that I want to use is the adjective bajo, bajo, which means short. So I would say, yo soy baja. Yo soy baja. Why did I use the feminine form? Because I'm a female. If you are a male that you're watching this video, you would say, yo soy bajo. So what if you're not short? What if you want to say, I am not short? Well, you have two options. You can either say, I am tall, or you can just simply say, I am not short. So before we move into our next adjective, let's learn how to say, I am not something. The way that you do that is you would put a no in front of your verb. So for me, I would say, yo no soy baja. That's a bit of a lie because I am, but you kind of follow the point. no soy baja. Yo no soy baja. So now let's say we're talking about Pepe. Pepe. We want to say that he is tall. I have two options and hopefully you kind of remember them. I could say Pepe is tall, or I could say he is tall. Let's look at both ways. That way we can review the subject pronouns. Pepe es alto. Pepe es alto. Or él es alto. Él es alto. Let's think a little bit about the plural form. Look at this group of girls. They are all blonde. So we want to say they are blonde. Number one, we need to remember that we have to match our adjective in gender. They're all girls. And number. More than one, so it should be plural. So we would say, ellas son rubias. Ellas son rubias. I want you to try this one on your own. They are all redheads. So how will we say they are redheads? Or they have red hair is basically what it would translate to. Think about it. Remember, subject pronoun, conjugation of the verb said, and the correct form of the adjective. I'll give you a few. Good! So you would say, ellos son pelirrojos. Ellos son pelirrojos. Let's do this one too. We want to say that they are intelligent. They are intelligent. How would we do that? So we would say, ellos son inteligentes. Ellos son inteligentes. Remember, inteligente changes from singular to plural, but we don't have to worry about gender. So I've just given you a few adjectives to get you started, but there's a ton more adjectives that you should probably learn so that you can start speaking with family or friends. So I want to invite you to look below. I have provided you with the link with a handout that you can find all sorts of adjectives to improve and expand your vocabulary. By the way, you can also find it at www.teachercatalina.com. Check out that library of resources that I have available for you. So before I give you a little something to do, let's review one last time how to put an entire sentence all in Spanish in which you describe yourself or somebody else. You're going to take the subject pronoun or the subject, it could be a name, then you're going to take the correct conjugation of the verb ser, and then you're going to find the correct form of the adjective. Again, it may help you remember when I say, yo soy baja. Yo soy baja. So now what I want to ask you to do is to go ahead and leave me a comment with one sentence that describes you. You should know how to do it. We just went through it. And remember, you can play and replay this video as many times as you need to. But I would definitely love to see that perfect Spanish sentence. Remember, subject pronoun or subject, conjugation of the verb said, and then finally your adjective. I know you're gonna do fantastic. I can't wait to see them. All right, amigos, I look forward to answering your comments and commenting on your fabulous sentence. Thank you for being with me today. Muchas gracias. Don't forget that if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I have tons of videos that you can use to continue learning your Spanish. Also, if you like this video, smash that like button. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos. I look forward to seeing you next time. Adios.